Hey guys, do these videos and a lot of times people in the comments section will ask what gear I'm using. I'm usually really not big on talking about the gear too much because I'm not sponsored by anybody, so I don't really think I need to throw brand names around and stuff like that. Because really I don't think it's that important. I think it's the time you spend with your gear rather than the gear itself that's going to make you a good and effective fisherman. But let's talk just a little bit about what I have been doing in a general sense on this particular trip. So what I've been throwing is the Redington Vise in a 9-foot 6-weight, the 9-foot 6-weight being the important part of that equation. And the reason I'm throwing a 6-weight rather than something lighter for the fish I'm catching and the size flies I'm throwing is because there is potential for bigger stuff in here. There's gar in here, there are big catfish, there are just absolutely huge buffalo and carp. And so if one of those come along, even though there's not a lot of current, there's still enough current that those fish could give you a heck of a bout. And having the 6-weight down here instead of maybe rather a 4, it's going to be a whole lot more fun when those big fish come along because you'll have a better chance of catching them. The reel that I'm running is an old Lamson. This is one of the original versions of the Lightspeed. They don't do this one anymore, but the Lightspeed line is still alive and kicking for Lamson, and they're great reels. They're a sealed drag mechanism, which for the dirty water and the gravelly, sandy places that I fish and the amount of time that my reel spends in the water, it's not a bad idea to keep water and algae and stuff like that out of the drag system. So that sealed drag does come in handy. It'd really be a treat if we were, in salt water or glacial fed salmon streams that have a lot of, suspended silt. Here it's kind of a luxury, but it's nice to have. The line that I'm running is a weight forward floating line. This is not deep enough in here right now to need a sink tip or anything like that. A 9-foot leader and a floating line is going to get me into all the snags I want to get into. It's this I will say something about because I have been using this line here, just put it on. Only had about 3 trips out with it. It's the Scientific Angler's Amplitude series in a weight forward floating 6-weight. And I got to tell you, this is not a cheap line. It's about $100 line, and that's usually out of my price range. But I got a chance to spring for it this time, and I did, and oh man, it does make a big difference. It's super slick, it floats really well, and it seems to be holding on to those characteristics really well, even in the dirty water that I tend to fish a lot. Doesn't seem to be having too much trouble shooting. I suppose if I took it home and cleaned it, it'd probably be back to normal and even better than I think it is. But that's me. Flies, using some relatively small flies, but I've found that even on big fish in this water, the smaller flies tend to work a little better. I started out with a Nymph and caught a couple of fish just bang bang on the Nymph, and then I started thinking that, well, maybe the water's dingy enough, I do need something bigger. So I just found a little pine squirrel-tailed Nymph with some a little bit of subtle flash in the body and some barbell eyes to help get it down, and that's what's been doing the bulk of the catching here so far. So probably going to stick with that. If nothing else happens here pretty quick, if things start to slow down, I might put a littler fly on under an indicator and see if maybe I can't round up a few bluegills and stuff to fill out the species variety. But this one's been doing good, so I'm going to stick with it. The leader I'm running is also probably heavier than that fly would normally call for. I'm running a 12-pound test Rio bass leader. Again, I've got the leader kind of bulked up more than you would. Because the water's dark enough, fish aren't going to see it. I'm stripping these flies, so it's going to be the swimming motion of the fly they notice, not the leader. And if one of those bigger fish comes along, I want a fair chance of handling it. I want a pretty decent chance of getting a fly out of the rocks if I get snagged, because in shallow rocky water like this, that's going to happen a lot, especially as the sun gets higher in the air and the fish start hugging the bottom a little more. So that's my equipment. Really nothing too advanced. No real big major bells and whistles there. Like I said, 9-foot 6-weight, weight forward floating line, and a decent reel, and you're pretty much in as well as you need to get. I just saw something flip up there on the top of the water in the in the stilling basin. So I think I'm going to crawl up there and do a little casting and see what we can get to happen. So let's get to it. So there you go. That's my go-to setup for spillways, smaller rivers, and hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments section. If you want me to, let me know and we can make this into a regular series. I can start breaking down the equipment that I use in the trips that I take for the videos, and hopefully that'll help out a little bit with your own fishing. Until next time, good luck fishing, tight lines. We'll see you in the next one.